Welcome back to Money Mondays here on YouTube at Unmarked Street. This week, we're going to talk about a subject that is unfortunately very prevalent going on in the apparel industry right now. I'm going to take you behind the scenes of a brand that didn't make it. We're watching a lot of different brands really struggle in the current economy, and we are watching a lot of brands shut down. And those of us who are in the consulting space, we are trying to do all that we can to reach those brands and help them figure out how to rectify their financial issues so that maybe they can figure out how to continue moving forward. Excuse me. This happened to us here at Unmarked Street a couple of years ago. So this is a process that I walked through with the brand a couple of years ago, and I have kind of removed all of the pertinent information to their brand. I've also kind of removed all of the dates. I just want to take you through the financial form that we used to kind of evaluate their brand, help them figure out what they were going to need to do to adjust all of their finances so they could potentially prevent themselves from shutting down. I will tell you that we were able to help them extend their brand's life for another 2 years by doing this exercise. However, they are no longer a brand. They did end up shutting down earlier in 2024. So again, a very sad story. This is someone who we really enjoyed doing this exercise with. They came to us at a time of need, and we were really happy to get them to move forward. But at the end of the day, it still didn't end up working out for them. So sometimes that happens. To be honest with you, I think it was a mentality thing. When they came to us, I think it was kind of already in their head that they weren't gonna survive very long. And even though we were able to help them turn their finances around for a couple of years, I think that seed had already been planted in their minds, and every step that they kind of took from there felt really half-hearted. Whenever we connected with them or tried to see how they were doing or reached back out, there was always kind of a despondency about the brand. There was not very much enthusiasm. I think being at this place made them feel just a little bit down about everything. And I think that kind of seeped into the rest of the life of their business, to the point where when they continued to struggle and when 2024 got even harder than 2022 and 2023, they decided that it was time to stop being in such a hard, difficult situation. So what I want to walk you through today, though, is what we take a look at if you are interested in kind of figuring out what's going on with the finances of your business. This is kind of how I do it, even for my service-based company, making sure that we have cash flow going in and out at the right rates at the right times. So we're not maxing out our credit card, or we're not writing checks or paying payroll when we don't have enough money in the bank. So this is something that I use. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. Okay. So there are a few different things on this spreadsheet here. Over here in the green is what we ended up starting with. We wanted to look at the amount of money that was projected to be coming in for them so that we knew essentially profit. So what could we expect in profit for every single month that was going to be moving forward? And so what we did is we took at the prior year. That's what PY stands for, is prior year. What were your prior year direct to consumer sales and your prior year wholesale revenue? And so we kind of broke that down to get this $64.15 a month was kind of coming into the brand at the time. What we then started to look at was, so far in that year, what were they starting to bring in? And so where were we at this point? We were starting to look at current balance. We were in March. So where were we from January 1st to March 15th? Sales were up. We were starting to see quite a good amount of extra sales. And then what was our goal? So even though we didn't quite get to this point, we were trying to set some goals to kind of get them excited about what the future could bring if we could turn this around. We also wanted to make sure that we were kind of looking at some of these percentages. And again, we would have used these if we would have kept going with building out a more robust 5 or 10 year business plan for them. But we ended up kind of really just needing to focus on how to get them out of the red. So that was step one, is kind of figuring out, what are you making on average every month? Where can you kind of project some of that money coming in? And I know that that's hard to do because every month can be a little bit different, but doing an exercise with this, like this, without some sort of an estimate or some sort of an average is essentially impossible. So you need to be able to know kind of at least a guess of what you're going to be making. Next, we went through kind of all of the different monthly expenses and what we were thinking about launching and what we were going to be spending at the factory. We had a payment plan going with one of their factories. They had some POs that were still due. Money was still due on those purchase orders. And so the factory had asked them to go on a payment plan. We agreed to that. And so they were going to be taking 12 months to pay off that entire amount. And it was going to be broken down into something that they could really manage. That was not going to be starting until after this year kind of went through. So you probably won't see these in the actual spreadsheet, or maybe you will. I can't remember exactly. Oh yeah, we did. So we did installments included in here in the actual cash flow sheet. We were trying to bundle things as much as we could. So like, what is due at the first of every month? When are other things due? And so we were trying to just calculate exactly what were you going to be spending versus what were you going to be making every single month, so that we could start to see a pattern and we could start to understand like how cash flow is going to work. So there are some other things in here that we were hoping to plan for, looking at adding a second factory for them in case we could get costs down. So that was a big initiative we were starting to talk about. And so this was something that we were looking at, like, how do we start to incorporate that? We didn't quite get there. Okay. And so then what I like to do is, so this is a fairly simple formula. You're going to take your current balance, and then anything you're either spending or adding into your account. And that's going to, up here, you can see in the formula, it's just taking your previous balance plus whatever amount you're subtracting or adding is going to give you your new balance. And then that just kind of gets pulled all the way down into the rest of the sheet. So you can see how she had $70,000. The brand owner had $70,000 sitting in their account. This was from a couple different loans that they had that they would need to be paying off. This was also from some fundraising that she had done with investors. So this was a good, healthy amount, we felt like, in her account balance. And when we started to go through her current expenses, what she was spending every single month versus what she was actually pulling in every single month, and what we could estimate, you can see that her balance slowly trickled and eventually came down to nothing, to the point where we started to see her in the red within just about 4 months. So that was a really big red flag to us initially. We needed to immediately, F11. We needed to immediately get all of her expenses down. So that was the first thing that we ended up doing with her budget, was by taking a look at this and seeing like how much leeway do you have? Like, what is your runway on cash? So this $70,000 that you have in your account right now, how long is this going to last you if you continue spending what you're spending? And like I said, that we saw pretty fast that she was only going to last 4 more months on the spending plan that she was on. And so the first things that we did were evaluate every single expenditure that she had in her business. And so what was relevant, what absolutely had to stay. Some of those things, like payments to the factory, were things that absolutely had to stay. Like, she felt like she was going to need to stick with factory number one. Committing to the purchase orders that you've made and paying them off is a great way to maintain factory relationships. If you are not paying them, that is going to be a big red flag for your factory. And if any other factory ever calls them and asks, hey, how are they as a customer? You want to make sure that you were paying your bills. So those kinds of things had to stay on there. She had certain things that she needed to be able to pay out. Like, there were certain apps. She obviously needed a website to be able to sell direct to consumer. All of those kinds of fees had to stay on the books. We took a big look at payroll, like who was she paying on payroll? What contractors did she have on the books? And unfortunately, she had to go through a big round of layoffs. So the people who were on her team who were making full-time payroll either went to part-time or went into contractor positions. And so she was able to save a little bit of money there, especially on the benefit side of things. We looked at the number of contractors who were on the books for her and were able to decide whether certain full-time employees who had just gone part-time could kind of handle some of that extra work, or was that not going to be possible? It was a very big team mix-up that ended up happening because of this huge financial review. There were a couple of other things like projects that she wanted to have on the list, onboarding a new factory, kind of figuring out what the future could be for advertising and hiring a marketing person. A lot of that had to come off of the list until she could kind of right side her budget. Just like any other good business advice, you want to make sure that you have more money coming into your business every month than you have going out. So if you add up all of your expenses from every single month, and if you are not doing this, I encourage you to start doing this every single week. I do this every single week here at Unmarked Street and the Business of Apparel. I look at my business bank accounts. I look at my cash flow spreadsheet, almost identical to what I just showed you. And I add up and make sure that every single credit card expense was valid. I add up to make sure, like, what am I spending per category? So what did I spend on advertising this month? What did I spend on payroll this month? What did I spend on apps and websites this month? And then I kind of roll all of that up to understand what are my average monthly expenditures. I can go back to the very first month where I started Unmarked Street and see a pattern now, because I have an exact roll up of what I spent every month and what I made every single month. And so when I have money coming in, either from clients, or if people purchase things on our website, or people come to the workshop and end up signing up for the course, like, all of that goes into my income every single month. And then I compare that against the amount that I've spent. If I have months where I have spent more than I've made, it goes in red in my ledger, and I know that I need to do better the next month. Now, we as business owners know that that happens. I think the goal is to not have it happen every single month, and to also make sure that your, like, base plan at least has you breaking even every single month. There have been months where I know that my spending is going to be whatever, $2,000. I'm only making $2,000, but at least that what I'm making covers what I know I need to spend. Obviously, ideally, we want to get to a point where we can be profit first. We want to be starting to put away money for profit and savings. We want to be trying to save 10% and holding that as profit. We want to be trying to pay ourselves. Like, payroll includes paying yourself. And I will admit right now at Unmarked Street, that's not happening for me. I haven't been paying myself until we get to a point of profitability that I'm really comfortable with. And so that's something that you need to understand for your own brand too. Do you need to pay yourself, and do you need to pull in a paycheck? If you do, that absolutely has to be included in here. So adding up all of those different things and figuring out how to get yourself to a point where you are making more money than you are spending every single month is really the key here. And then understanding how your cash flow works so that the amount of money you currently have will either last you quite a bit of time so that you can figure out how to get more sales on your books. Maybe you need to spend a little bit more on advertising or something like that so that you can make more sales. And then that will kind of right turn your budget spreadsheet. There are a lot of different things that you can be doing as a small business owner to make sure that you're driving yourself toward more profitability. But taking a look at the numbers and making sure that you have enough cash on hand to last as long as you're going to need to be able to get to that point is also a great exercise for you to do. I will say the brands who we are experiencing closing their doors, who have come to us to ask us for help, or to ask us for these kinds of evaluations, or to ask us to help set up a new business plan, are typically spending like double what they're making every single month. And unfortunately, that's just the truth. That's what we're seeing. They're spending a lot of money on travel and events, trying to be present with their customers. And while that is super important, it's one of the things that blows their budgets way out of the water. We see people spending a lot of extra money on huge amounts of inventory. So maybe they got advice to go work with a specific factory overseas because a friend of theirs said that it was the best factory around. And once they got in with that factory, they found out that they had to make 3,000 units of their first purchase order for every single item. So the jacket they wanted, the short they wanted, the jersey that they wanted, they needed to order 3,000 units of each of those styles to be able to even be with that factory. And because of that, they owed so much money upfront for those purchase orders. It's taking them so long to make that money back. And so there are a lot of different things that can put you in debt. And we then watch these people just scramble and work toward finding new investors, finding new loans, getting new ways to fundraise, and it can become their full-time job. So instead of spending time on product, or instead of spending time being the visionary of their brand, or instead of spending time focusing on sales and marketing, they are out there hitting the pavement every single day trying to get more funds. And that ends up taking away from all of those other tasks that they really should be doing to make sure that they're growing the business the right way. So there's a lot here. I just wanted to let you know that this is kind of what's going on behind the scenes that we're seeing. And if you're on Instagram, for example, we've been seeing a lot of different announcements over the last year, over the last 6 months, especially, of brands feeling like they need to close their doors. And a lot of the times when we're kind of allowed into the doors and we're allowed to see what's actually going on behind the scenes, it's because they're spending more than they're making. And we have a way of helping clients who want to do like a business plan with us. We have a way of kind of recommending that you take all of your inventory profits and apply it just toward your next purchase order of inventory so that you are constantly always seeing growth from that. It's only your business's profits that are helping you grow and helping you place the next purchase order. You're never ordering something that you can't afford right then because the previous inventory that you purchased actually is helping you afford that. And so we apply that kind of a principle to the business plans that we're putting out into the world. And so if you think of it that way, that's essentially what you want to be doing. You want to have a 65% direct to consumer margin on all of your products. You want to have a 50% margin on all of your wholesale products. And that will also help you get there. Those healthy margins are going to help that profit grow to the point where you can then take that profit, apply it to your next PO, get the next batch of inventory in, take a profit from that, apply it to the next PO, and so on and so forth, essentially forever for your brand. Now, there are some brands who want to take big risks. So they want to take 100% of that profit and apply it to the next PO so that next time they've got even more profit coming. But there are other brands who want to be more risk averse and they want to be a little bit more conservative. And so they only take portions of that profit to apply to the next PO. And that will take them a lot longer to see their growth kind of happen. But it is also a little bit of a safer way. So you kind of need to decide whether you want to be riskier, a little bit more conservative in doing that with your brand. So I just wanted to give you a little peek inside what's going on here. The apparel industry has been tough. We know that it is expensive to start an apparel brand. A couple of weeks ago in our live, we said we really start recommending that people have 150 grand saved up on hand or somehow invested into the beginning of their brand to start the right way, to order enough inventory, to get that profit model started, to have the right kind of help on your team, and to be able to work with a really good factory. So I know that's a lot of money, but that's where we kind of recommend that people start. And then we can help you kind of figure out where to go from there so that you don't get into debt situations like this. So a little bit of information for you. If you have any questions on this process, please let me know. Honestly, this is also a process that I use for my personal expenses. I like to know, like, what are we pulling in every single month and what are we spending every single month? And is our checking account going down? Is it going up? Are we in a good place? Do we feel like maybe we can spend a little bit and go on a vacation this month or whatever it is? I use this kind of budgeting tool for all of the businesses that I own. RTQ Apparel was built this way. Unmarked Street is this way. And we also monitor the business of apparel a little bit separately because that's our education arm. So all of those are monitored with these kinds of spreadsheets. And then also all of my personal expenses are done this way too. I've been doing this for over a decade, I think for 15 years. This is how I've kind of been evaluating everything, making sure that I always have more money coming in than I have going out to make sure that I'm never stressed or worried about funding. So again, if you have questions, please let me know. Comment below this video. We would love to hear from you, and have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you next week.